Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at a scenario where the world gets split into regions. Yeah, basically. So, yeah, we're going to do a regions battle royale. So, first of all, we got to obviously split the world into regions. I'm going to start with the Middle East. And we're going to just say the wider Middle Eastern region here. So, of course, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. I know it is still. I'm not talking about ethnic but I'm talking about geographically what um, region is it in? If there was nobody here, what region could you say it was part of? And that yes, that does mean Cyprus is part of the Middle East. So yeah, it's that little Middle Eastern region. We've also and also mm, I'd say Iran is also part of the Middle East, not because of the language. Once again, geographically, and we're also going to include main Turkey, not all of Turkey, but just the main parts of it, and then the Thrace is part of Europe. So we just split Turkey into two. We've of course have to include the Caucasus region, um, Central Asia, and I think we're also going to include Afghanistan in this. Then you got the Indian subcontinent, which is going to include India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, the Maldives. Should I include? Yeah, and that's it. And then we also have Southeast Asia here. No, that's the color of the ocean, isn't it? Um, yeah, Southeast Asia, which is Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And I know in the Polynesian countries and the Pacific countries, they have their own Melanesia and that. But if I was to do that, then they would. There's literally no point in me doing splitting them up because they don't even have an army. I don't think. Does does Palau or Nauru really have an army? What to fight the waves? So yeah, I don't think they need a. We're just gonna. Are we gonna sink them in the ocean? No, we're just gonna make them part of one larger. Okay, wait, I'm just testing something. Is that the same thing? No, it's not. Okay. So we're just gonna actually that looks pretty similar. So we're just gonna make all of the continent of Oceania as one main region as such. And yes, I am allowed to split up countries because that makes it more interesting, isn't it? When you have half and half of your Russia, for example, so Asian and European Russia. Papua New Guinea will also be that. And the Philippines, that's quite an interesting one, but I still think they are geographically part of Southeast Asia more than anything else. Then we've got East Asia, which is arguably going to be the strongest country in the world. Very, very strong. Both Korea and Japan, or actually, um, it's got three of the largest armies in the world. We've got the largest army in the world with China, of course. Then you've got North Korea, which has also got, so that's already minimum 4 million troops. You've got South Korea and Japan, lots of population. And you've even got Taiwan as well, who's got a very capable military. So these guys have all got very strong militaries and insane economies. So if you combine all these together, they'd probably have about 28 trillion. So it's like just under America. So it's like definitely one of the second strongest alliance at least. And then what about Mongolia? Yeah, what about Mongolia? Mm. This is we're gonna just invent a new region, North Asia, which is the Ural Mountains are like here or something. So, yeah, Russia's going to get split in half. This is one of the weakest teams in the world. I mean, they have got a lot of oil, which I suppose before, because I'm going to imagine if you were going to do this, obviously, Latrine is more of like a fun thing. Obviously, this is not fun. It would not be fun for the world. Everyone will get nuked. But I'm sure they've got enough resources in here. You could sell them. You could get nuclear weapons. You could get a decently strong army. The only problem is you don't have many people. You have like 30 million people in this entire 28, 25, 27, and about 2 million in Mongolia. I mean, Mongolia is literally, there's no point of even having it. It's going to do absolutely nothing. So, yep, now we're going to have Eastern Europe. Russia, of course, is going to be the main dog here. I can't believe I just said that, but whatever. Actually, I know the weakest alliance now. It's the Caucasus. They're really weak. Then we got Ukraine. I know some people like to do this, but this is what I'm doing, and you're just gonna... If you don't like it, you don't have to watch the video. Simple. Are we gonna... Eastern Europe. Yeah, I think that's it for Eastern Europe, honestly. And then... So it's mainly just like a mini Soviet Union. Then you've got Scandinavia. We're going to do these guys up here. Actually, we'll do Northern Europe. So this means we get the UK. It's just decently strong. They are a nuclear armed alliance, which is interesting. The good thing to point out. Or should we do Western Europe? Okay, we'll just do it like this. Then, of course, Iceland, Svalbard, etc. And then we're gonna have Central Europe. Let's give them like a orangey yellow color. Germany, Poland, just mainly these guys. This is roughly what accounts to Central Europe. Okay, and I know this would not work because this is one of the most tension-filled regions of the entire world, and it has been for a very long time. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna make the Balkans one team, which would actually be a decently strong team. They've got Greece, Greece, Romania, and Serbia. Which Greece and Romania are obviously the strongest, but it's a decently armed. They've got enough population to be able to fight off. Actually, they probably can't fight off because they've got Russia. No, although because Russia has to fight a lot of fronts, but if not, because Russia can go into here. Got the Middle East can push in through Turkey, do another thing. Central Europe can push down and try and get access to the Adriatic. Then, honestly, what do we... Is there really a point of doing Southern Europe? Yeah. Because then... This is... You know what? Okay, fine. We're going to put the Benelux nations in Northern Europe. I have an idea. Watch where we're going. And then these guys, because they are... That is the same color, isn't it? Okay. How about we do that? Yeah, we'll do that. You're slightly lighter now. Oh, and this part of the island's here. And then would you notice a difference? Yes, you would. Okay. So we are going to make France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Malta, Southern Europe here. And we're also going to add the exterior colonies, etc. So yeah, this is what we've got for Europe. I think this is cool so far. Then now we're going to add North Africa. The only problem is I think we're going to run out of countries. No, run out of colors for all of this. So this is our North African kind of thing. I think we also put Egypt back in North Africa because they feel more, I'd say, more accustomed to being African than, say, I don't know. I'd say they're more North African than, like, Middle East. Although you could say, but I'm just going to put them in North Africa because that would make it more interesting. Then we have got the Sahel. This is going to be one of the weakest regions in the world, but it's mainly just these guys, really. And then I don't know what we do with you. Then we'll probably do a West Africa. So yeah, this is just gonna be all of these guys, decently strong, and we'll also put in Cameroon for the fun. Actually, no, we're not gonna do Cameroon. We'll move you, Cameroon. We'll do a Central Africa. Do a Central African one. And maybe, yeah, this is Central Africa. And then we got East Africa, which is, I think, would be one of the most powerful in Africa. It's all of these guys like to call themselves East African. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing, calling them all East African. Going down to here, yep. Then I'd say the rest of them would just be a South African conglomerate. They aren't the same thing. So maybe we just brighten that up a little bit, yeah. All these guys, as well as Reunion, Mayotte, Mauritius, Comoros, Seychelles. We're all going to put you in Southern Africa. No, actually, Seychelles goes to East Africa. I'm only going through this so you guys can tell what I'm doing and going through with it and my explanations, because I'm sure you might be like, so far this is actually looking really cool on this map. And then from here, what else are you really going to do? There are a few small divides that you can do, starting with Central America. We're putting Panama in here, and that's the end. That I don't want to hear it, because Panama looks more like they should belong here than in South America. So that's what we're doing. Yeah. Then we'll do the Caribbean. Or probably these are probably who is the most cooked? Okay, I'd say they're probably the third weakest. No, the second weakest. Second weakest region of the world. Weakest. Yeah, this is really close. Weakest, I'd still say, is. But who is really weakest? No, actually, yeah, this is the weakest country, weakest region in the world. They've got almost no military strength. They get absolutely rolled over by even just like, if Colombia had more naval assets, they could destroy all the thing on their own. Venezuela, they're not going well. But yeah, so these are the weakest. Second weakest is the Caucasus. Third weakest. No, actually, second weakest is Central America. Then the Caucasus, because of they've got decent. Azerbaijan has got decent military for its size, at least. And then number 4, by a little bit more of a bigger gap, is probably North Asia. No, number 4 is actually the Sahel, and number 5 is North Asia. Yeah. Number 5th weakest. Then we'll do the so that's the bottom 5, and then for the rest of it, I'd just say the US. All of these guys. This would just be North America, and we're also going to put Greenland in there, so the US is happy. Nothing like a good old Greenland. You didn't hear what I just said, did you? I love Greenland. It's very green. It's not green. It's green like Melania. Sorry about that. I just needed a daily Trump impression. Yes, so we have just added North America. Now let's do more yellow. Yeah, we don't have that color yet. And then we'll just do South America. Yeah. There's not as much that you can do to divide this area as you can for, let's say, Africa or Europe, or I could have divided Europe even more. I could have done Southern Europe, Western Europe, Northern Europe. And then I could have given more land to Eastern Europe as well, but I just didn't want to do that. Yeah, what are we going to do about this territory over here? We'll give it to Southern Africa. So yeah, let's get right into it. This is going to be very interesting. But before we do that, we're going to have a quick power rankings. I'm just going to draw a 1 on it. Or whatever. We'll do it starting in order from the most powerful country on this map. We are going to say, drum roll, is here by like the tiniest of margins, because it's the US and it's the US, no other reason. The US, and we got Canada with another industrial strength, and you've got the population of all these guys, which I know it's not as much as here, but if you got the technology of this, as well as, yeah. And we're just going to ignore about the fact that the American public doesn't like war, and we're going to say that they're like a nationalistic country, which we're going to just imagine. Second place, by like 0.0001% is here. It's almost tied, but I just think if over time, I would say that the US would just slightly edge it out because they've got a little bit more, they've got more natural they've got more oil, which from, of course, they've got Canada and Mexico and the US supplying your LNG here. So they'd have enough oil to continue the war, and they've got all the metal that they need mostly. Whereas these guys have to import all their oil from like Malaysia and the Gulf states. So I'd just say if you had to keep going without, if you had like trade blockade and stuff, they'd probably win the US. Okay, so number 2 here. Number 3. This is quite a difficult choice, actually. I would say it is this, South Asia, because it's India and Pakistan in the same alliance, right? Come on. Now, this is really difficult, honestly, if you had to pick one. So number 4. I don't know. I really don't know who to pick. I'm going to say here. So this is number 4. Number 5, Southern Europe. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. Oh, wait, actually, I didn't see that. Number... This is 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's better. 10, 11, 12, 13. No. 13, 14, 15. No. This is difficult. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And then 20th. Who's the next week? Who did I say? Wait, actually, wrong way around. 20th. It's only because it's got Russia. 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd in last place. Okay, so now it's going to delete everything. Fantastic. Let's begin the war. We're going to start with the most likely front to have movement in, which is going to be Central Asia, Europe, and Asia, because we started here, so let's do it. The first thing we're going to have happening, of course, is the Caucasus countries getting absolutely mauled over. What is going to be quite interesting though is who is going to get the most land, and I would say in this case it would be the Middle Eastern countries, simply because they simply because they the Caucasus Mountains are here, so they're gonna slow down. So we have Russian forces moving in from the north, capturing Tbilisi. However, we also see Middle Eastern forces moving in, specifically from Iran and Turkey, moving to here. I put Turkey in here because it's geographical. Show yourselves. Okay, now we also have forces from, begins with I. I'm pretty sure you do. Anyway, they move up to the Suez Canal and have set up a fortification along the canal, which is backed up by Iranian and Turkish missile defense systems as well here. So they've got a decent size. They've got a decent area because they only have to really worry about the South Asians and the Russians. Then I think they'll be fine otherwise, because no one else is really going to be able to make a landing here. They've probably got a lot of rockets in here to help defend them, because we're going to imagine they all just kept building up. We've got stuff from China. Iran does. They all do. Anyway, now we're going to move into here, where we see the Middle Eastern forces manage to take over and start to move into the Eastern Balkans, moving into Romania now, and attempting to take a few Greek islands, which they are able to capture a few, but not all of them, and they are stopped in their tracks there. We now see the Russians and the Central Europeans make an advance together. We see the Central Europeans start to move into Croatia and northern Serbia. Central Europeans are able to capture Zagreb and now Ljubljana, and only Istria is left for Southern Europeans. They now move into Bosnia and capture northern Serbia, as well as move into Transylvania, which Hungary is very happy about. We also see the Russians move into the rest of Romania, and the Balkans aren't in a really good spot at the moment. They've got some of the most powerful countries, well, in the top 10, all fighting them at the same time. And we also see Southern European forces make a landing and capture Crete and move in here because they still want some land. So they move up into southern Serbia and Kosovo and meet the Middle Easterns, Central Europeans, and Russians at the same time. We see the Middle Easterns move into the rest of Bulgaria. Central Europeans follow along the border, and we see the Russians making a small advance here and into Central European territory, as well as in Middle Eastern territory here. They can't do too much though, because they have, but where they do have a lot of success as well though, is we see Russian forces moving into the European section of Kazakhstan, able to capture all of this fairly easily. We also see them start a small advance from Ukraine, because we got Ukraine's military going in here. A lot of drone attacks, I would imagine. Ukraine start to move into Slovakia and eastern Hungary, as well as southern Poland. And just a small bit of movement along the border, not much, as Poland's got one of the best militaries in Europe now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, about 7th-ish. 7th to... You could change that, though. You could say the UK is lower. But yeah, we also see Poland doing a pretty good job at holding up the cities, especially over here. But they are letting through a couple Russian forces in some gaps. Ignore the ice cream van, it's okay. However, we also do see Central European forces move up into Kaliningrad here, capturing most of it, and starting an advance which goes pretty well to completely destroy Denmark. Okay, I'm closing my window. This is really annoying. That's better. Now we also see the Central Europeans moving into the Netherlands and capturing this area, as well as the Southern Europeans moving in to capture the rest of it. There's intense naval battles. However, the UK's, because we're still going to say, if they had a year to, or a few years to prepare for this war, the UK would just churn out loads of ships, get send them up here, and they would probably have a nice, strong naval wall like here. They could easily, very, very easily blockade the Central Europeans, which is why they want to go down here. But then Southern Europeans could just do that. So then they're technically cooked because they can't import anything. So they have to just make all their own food. So Slovakia, Austria, Hungary, Poland, Germany, you guys have got to make all the food. Switzerland is just going to be a nice mountain fortress, though. We also see France move into some areas of Western Switzerland, along with Italy. And they also start a few small advances trying to push through the Alps, but which is kind of stupid, but they want to do it anyway. So these guys have got to worry about some naval invasions, but I think the UK would be mostly fine at this point. We also see Russian forces attempt to move into eastern Finland. However, the Scandinavian countries, Finland is going to be able to hold their own here, and is going to even move into this Russian city over here. And together with them and Sweden start to move into the Kola region of Russia and are able to capture the entire thing, which is a pretty big loss for them. But sorry. Now we move to Africa, where we see quite a lot of movement actually. We see the East Africans making a move at first, going into the Halaib region of Egypt and moving into the the very underpopulated regions of southern Egypt, not reaching any cities of any real. So one good thing they can do though is they can slow water flow to Egypt. So Egypt's gonna have to get that sorted out really. We also see them Algeria sending a few forces down into Niger, which turns into quite a few forces and a lot of forces now, as they're going to try and get the Sahel countries for their resources and try and build a nuclear weapon, which is not what you want happening. Anyway, we see Moroccan forces moving in from Western Sahara. Yes, we're going to give them all Western Sahara for this thing. Do I think they do own all of it? No, they don't. Do they own all of it? No, but we are saying that now. Okay, you know what? I'm trying to get this one pixel and it doesn't want to join. Okay, we got there eventually. But yeah, so Moroccan forces are going to stay mostly along the coast. However, they're going to make a few small advances along the border, but are mostly going to stay along the coast and launch a few offensives into the Sahel country to try and capture the major cities. The capital falls pretty quickly, and from here, the country's just got no chance. This is one of the weakest countries in the world, I think. They've got absolutely no chance of fighting back any of this advance, especially when you see West African forces now moving in, capturing the capital of Mali, and this is probably the strongest country in the alliance. So if you lose, they're all pretty weak, to be fair. They've all got insurgents going through them, so goodbye. I'd say they're going to capture this. And you've got the population from Nigeria. So if they had to import or like design their own military, they could do something like this. They also move into this region of Cameroon, with Nigerian forces mostly propping up this advance. West African forces are mainly concentrated near Mauritania, where they're able to capture the rest of the land from this area and have a nice southern front here developing. The Sahel countries are basically dead already. There's no point in even fighting, especially as the final capital falls. Just got no chance, honestly. Now we also see the Central Africans making their first advance. And who else would it be? Let's move into the completely crippled Sahel countries to cripple them even more. How about a 1, 2, 3, a fourth front? Yeah, that would be great. And we also see the Central Africans moving into northwest Mozambique and Zimbabwe, also moving to capture the... Oh, I know what it's called. Oh, I can't think of it. It's all right. But they do move in to capture some land from northern Namibia. Namibia is one of those countries where you would think if you had used... And this is for most people that aren't good at geography. Obviously, you can use this map to kind of help you out, but if you weren't good at geography, you could have seen this map and assumed, for example, Russia is the world's largest population, and that countries such as Iran wouldn't have more people than Kazakhstan by about 4 or 5 times. So, yeah, and you would think that like these kind of even Namibia might have a relatively high population similar to levels of Tanzania or Ethiopia. No, they've got like 3 million people because this is like the only habitable this and this northern part. It's the only habitable region of the entire country. So if you just get that out, the country's gone, really. They also start a small offensive in southwestern Tanzania and over here in Uganda. This is going to be another 2-part series, mini-series. 2 or 3-part, actually, because, well, we've still got most of the countries alive, to be fair. So we're going to have to sort that out. Anyway, now let's get rid of the next 2. Because for most of these, I am just trying to give them an advance so we can remember the color, right? But, yeah, the problem is, we're never gonna find out what their invasion color looks like, because they're never gonna invade anyone. Both these guys have got 0 chance of fighting back. We're ignoring the Darien Gap because that's boring. So we see the South Americans. They captured the Panama Canal, which is actually a pretty big victory for them. But when the American naval forces arrive, sorry, my throat's quite dry today. It's not very nice. Maybe it's that rain we've been having. You never know. But, of course, America's going to do the most of the heavy lifting here. However, I'd say their forces are more focused on just trying to get rid of the Caribbean at this point. I'd say Mexico could be left alone to do this, and they would be able to achieve the speed. But then, eventually, once all of it's done, American forces will start to come down. Canadian forces don't really have to do anything at the moment. They're probably just moving over to Greenland and the Eastern Front so they can launch an invasion maybe into Europe or in Russia or etc. But yeah, then they meet together, and now the American naval might is shown off as like almost only like a sixth of their army is able to wipe out the Caribbean within a few weeks. It's mainly just because there's loads of islands like the Bahamas, etc. So, but yeah, and then the American forces arrive, and Central America gets completely South America gets pushed back to the canal, where they do manage to hold on for now. They lose the Galapagos though, and America's building up their forces. Canadian forces actually start to get relocated down south, and they're building up their forces for a few major amphibious naval invasions across the continent. Now, this is quite an interesting start so far. Now we have to move over to the eastern side of the map, where we haven't had any changes so far, which I'm sure they would have been. Let's start with a East Asian team who's going to just completely destroy Mongolia. And, I was going to be harsh, and then I'm like, I'm going to be harsh. They've got no chance. Even the Chinese military, obviously they could conscript up to probably about 50 million soldiers, so they don't even have to send that many people in terms of their population size into this area, and they could capture all of this relatively easily. And once they lose most of their eastern half, the rest of the country is not going to survive. So we have Russian forces are going to capture about this large segment, and they basically just like, what was the point of making North Asia? I know you may be saying that, but we needed to include it, right? And this is also going to be Central Asia's first and only and last advance into any other country. So you're going to get to see them. Lucky. So their forces just make one last advance to try and get some more land. But they know once the Chinese redirect their attention over here, they're gone. Same as the Middle East, which is actually what's going to happen as we see both the Middle Eastern countries and India and the South Asians, despite even fighting already, are going to launch a joint invasion. Well, not joint, but like they're going to invade at the same time. However, we see Pakistani forces immediately able to move into the entire Baloch region of southeastern Iran. They're able to capture all of this because of their sheer army size. And then Pakistani forces, backed by Indian forces as well, are able to move into all of Afghanistan. They also move further up into eastern Iran. And yeah, I'm sorry, they're not going to survive this. Pakistani forces do wonders moving into this Central Asian region, and they now start to push towards Tashkent. If they lose that city there, they're gone within another week. And China sees this, and they're like, ooh, let me just take some more land. So then they start to build up their forces on the border, and now they start to swoop in from the east, and they are able to reach this major lake over here. They now start to push up here, and they enter the Fergana Valley first for the South Asians. Ugh. And yeah, they push all the way up, and they reach and destroy Nur Sultan. Or is Astana? I don't know. One of the two. They also push back the Russian advance quite a significant amount up to here. But this is where China's like, okay, we have to start like remaking supply lines, because this is just... also North Asia is the 1, 2, 3, 4... No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they are the fifth country to be wiped off the map, which makes sense because they are the fifth weakest. Actually, no. Yeah, they're the sixth weakest. But these guys, they're going to fall in a second, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to fall pretty easily. The East Africans are going to take the rest. Yeah, this is a nice front. Now there's one less country in Africa. However, we also see South African forces finally finish mobilizing. And now they start to march on the front lines. And they're able to do a pretty good job moving into southern Angola. And they now move into Zambia. And they completely destroy Malawi. They also completely push back the Central Africans, as they weren't expecting this. But yeah, South African military power, arming all these guys with extra population, is going to be able to beat these guys because they haven't got very good militaries, honestly, at this point. So, yeah, we also see the East Africans, who are actually turning out to be pretty powerful if they all work together. Yeah, they moved into the Eastern Central Africa, capturing all of this swathes of territory here. Doing really well for themselves. They have to worry about the North Africans, though, but do they really? Not much fighting's going on between these two, though, because what's the point of fighting West versus East? Because they know at the moment they've got far more important priorities to get on with, as we also see the West Africans capture the capital of Cameroon, and now start a sweeping operation into Western Central African Republic. And they meet together with the East Africans, who signed a temporary ceasefire with them, just to say, well, let's get rid of our bigger priorities for now, and then we'll fight. We'll throw hands. They're like, yeah, sure, why not? There's no point of us fighting yet. And they reached the capital of the Congo, which is probably the capital of the entire thing. And if this falls, then it's not got much hope left. These guys are just sending most of their militaries in as quick as possible to try and get as much land as they can. Now we see these South Africans advance, start to speed up as they reach Luanda, and they capture the city. And yeah, this is quite a fast collapse. We're just maybe speeding forward a couple months, but I'm sure they could do this if all three of them work together. But like, the only thing you have to think about when this kind of happens, right? The second they fall, which they just do now, they're going to start fighting each other. So it's like, it's not over yet, is it? Now there's only 4 alliances, 4 countries left here. This is going to be the next country to fall, though, as you know. As we see the... Why did I do that? Yeah, we see the Russian alliance managed to completely kick them out. Kick the Central Asians out. And now they start to move themselves into the remainders of what is left of this country here. They haven't got much hope left, as they know. And they're able to capture roughly this amount of land. The only problem is supplying it and keeping it under their control. The South Asians move into the rest of this land. And yeah, now this has just opened a brand new front. Yes, the final area of the map that hasn't had any movement is Southeast Asia and Oceania. So let's fix that. I'm sorry, Southeast Asia. I know you're pretty strong, but when you've got the second and third most powerful alliances, and of course Australia, because it's Australia, right? Looking at you for resources and everything. It's not great. It's really not great. But, of course, they're going to use Vietnam-style tactics to slow them down, which goes incredibly well. They, in the months leading up to this war, they built tons and tons of traps and fortifications in the north of their country and the boundaries and the perimeters. The only problem is if they get a naval landing, I don't know if they're going to survive. And they also done the same thing in these eastern Indonesian islands and the Philippines, north of that as well. Now we see China attempt to move into Laos, and they do pretty well, though, capturing this, but they aren't able to move into Vientiane. They start to move into northern Vietnam, but once again, loads of guerrilla forces over here. And Myanmar, as a united country, would actually be fairly strong if they had a decent military as well. But the as much as their fortifications are slowing down the Chinese, they're still really powerful. So yeah, and same with South Asians. But this is a decent start because they're holding their own. The only problem is if they lose the Philippines, then from there they can just go boom, 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 loads of different ways to go into. So they don't want to lose the Philippines, which is kind of what's going to happen next, actually, as we see Chinese, Japanese, South Korean, Taiwanese forces, and North Korean as well. Basically, all of these guys are just going to build up loads of forces in Taiwan, southern China, and the Spratlys and all these and all Okinawa and stuff. And then they're going to launch a massive naval invasion, one of the largest in the world, about 2 to 3 million troops. And they land in the northern Philippines. And yeah, the Philippines is going to try their absolute hardest with their entire military and most of the population having some kind of weapon to try and fight back. But it's not enough, really. The Philippines is going to inflict about 100,000 casualties on the Chinese coalition. However, their entire Philippine army is destroyed, and now they have a naval base over here, which they use straight away, and they move and they land into Sabah, and they capture the whole thing. Brunei is gone, and now they start to get their own oil reserves back up and running, which is good, actually. We also see over here, China launched a sweeping invasion into Vietnam. However, it stopped. But they want to try and cut off the north, which is what Vietnam realizes. So they pull some forces back here to manage to hold the front a little bit longer, which is exactly what they do. And they're able to push back in Laos as well, just pushing back Chinese a little bit. Meanwhile, the South Asians start to speed up their advance, though. And they capture Naypyidaw and Malaysia. Myanmar starts to fall now. And South Asia manages to push down, capture this final region here, and they do pretty well. South Asian forces, mostly Indian and Bangladeshi and Sri Lankan, build up here in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Sri Lanka, and then they all go to these islands, and then they start a naval invasion of Sumatra, and this goes really well, as Indonesia was not expecting this. However, they are still doing guerrilla fighting here. This is a new foothold in Indonesia, which was not expected and not wanted to happen. And now they have control of the Strait of Malacca, especially since they make a naval landing in Western Malaysia. This goes pretty well, cutting off Malaysia from the rest of the alliance. And they are able to capture the Strait of Malacca, which is a major, major boost for them. And now India decides to launch a dual-pronged offensive from the south and the north to completely connect these guys up, and it works. And they now reach Bangkok. Of course, there is going to be some fighting, and we see Chinese forces move into this region here, and a little bit of northern Bhutan and India. We also see Indian forces doing, and Pakistani forces doing the same here. Chinese forces moving to western Nepal. It's just back and forth, really, between these guys. India knows if they can get most of this land down here, then they would be pretty good. They make another naval landing down here. Sumatra does end up falling completely to the South Asians, which is a very, very big boost. I know this is quite a long video, but there's going to be a part 2 as well. We also see the Australians now finally start their attacks, moving through all this territory, and they're able to capture, I'd say, a pretty good portion of all the Eastern Islands. The only thing is they're not really that valuable anymore because they've got spices, but you don't need spices to win a war, do you? So that looks too similar, doesn't it? But yes, that's going to do it for part 1. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Goodbye.